One of the most powerful and carefully researched elements in Red Dead Redemption 2 is the portrayal of Arthur Morgan's tuberculosis, not just as a plot twist, but as a slow, systemic force that reshapes the entire game. Rockstar didn't use illness as a shortcut for tragedy. They treated it as a historical reality of the late 1800s and designed it to affect Arthur physically, psychologically, and morally in ways that feel grounded and devastatingly believable. Tuberculosis in the game is contracted during the mission where Arthur confronts Thomas Downs, a visibly sick debtor who coughs blood directly onto Arthur's face. This is historically accurate. TB spreads through airborne droplets, and prolonged or close exposure, especially to someone actively coughing blood, was one of the most common transmission methods before antibiotics existed. The game never dramatizes the moment with music or cutscenes. It happens quietly, almost unremarkably, which mirrors how real people often contracted the disease without realizing it. What's crucial is how long the illness stays hidden. For a significant portion of the game, Arthur shows only subtle symptoms: fatigue, coughing fits, weight loss, and reduced stamina. These aren't just visual cues, they're mechanical. Arthur's cores begin to drain faster, his stamina regeneration slows, and he becomes physically weaker in combat and traversal. The game never pauses to explain this in explicit terms. Players feel it before they understand it, which mirrors how TB patients often experienced a gradual decline before diagnosis. The diagnosis itself is one of the most restrained and realistic scenes in the game. When Arthur visits the doctor in Saint Denis, there's no miracle cure, no dramatic monologue. The doctor is blunt, compassionate, and limited by the medical knowledge of the time. He correctly identifies tuberculosis as a death sentence and recommends rest, fresh air, and avoiding stress. Standard advice in an era when antibiotics didn't exist. This is historically accurate. TB sanatoriums focused on isolation, nutrition, and rest, not cures. Arthur's fate is sealed not by narrative convenience, but by history. From that point on, the disease becomes inseparable from Arthur's worldview. His dialogue changes. He becomes more reflective, more honest, and more aware of time slipping away. Importantly, this shift isn't automatic. It depends heavily on the player's honor level. A high honor Arthur uses his remaining strength to help others, settle debts gently, and protect people who still have a future. A low honor Arthur becomes bitter, angry, and resigned. The illness doesn't redeem him on its own. It forces clarity. Arthur doesn't become good because he's dying. He becomes honest because denial is no longer possible. The physical decline continues right up until the end. Arthur's coughing worsens. His posture slumps. His face becomes pale and sunken. Even simple actions like sprinting or fighting take more effort. Rockstar animators adjusted his movements to reflect exhaustion and pain, which is why late-game Arthur feels heavier and slower, even outside of direct stat changes. This isn't scripted weakness, it's systemic decay. What makes this portrayal especially effective is that the game never lets the player fix it. There are no secret tonics, no optional doctors, no alternate endings where Arthur survives. The open world remains open, but the disease is absolute. This design choice reinforces the game's central theme. You can't outrun time, money, violence, or death. Arthur, a man who has always solved problems with force or endurance, is faced with something that doesn't care how strong he is. The illness also reframes earlier moments in the story. Arthur's loyalty, his anger, and even his cruelty gain new context once you realize how little time he has left. His growing disillusionment with Dutch isn't just moral, it's existential. Arthur can see the end coming, while Dutch is still chasing a future that no longer exists. Tuberculosis becomes the dividing line between illusion and reality. By the final chapters, Arthur's illness stops being about him alone. It becomes a moral weight on every choice. When he helps John escape, gives money away, or confronts Dutch, he isn't trying to win. He's trying to matter. His body is failing, but his agency isn't. That distinction is critical. The game never portrays Arthur as helpless, only finite. In the end, Red Dead Redemption 2 treats tuberculosis with rare respect. It's not a twist, a punishment, or a cheap emotional trigger. It's a historically grounded, mechanically integrated reality that forces the player to confront mortality in a way most games avoid. Arthur Morgan doesn't die because the story needs him to. He dies because the world he lived in had no cure, and because some endings aren't meant to be escaped, only faced with honesty. That honesty is what makes Arthur's final hours resonate so deeply. By the time the illness has fully taken hold, Arthur is no longer fighting for survival in the traditional sense. He's fighting for meaning. Tuberculosis strips away every illusion he once relied on. Strength, loyalty to Dutch, the belief that violence could fix anything. What's left is a man who understands that time is his most valuable remaining resource, not money or revenge. The game reinforces this through quieter moments rather than dramatic ones. Arthur's conversations become shorter, more sincere. He listens more than he speaks. When he reflects in his journal, his writing shifts from cynical observations to genuine self-examination, often questioning whether the life he lived was worth the cost. These entries aren't random flavor text. They evolve directly alongside his illness, marking his transition from outlaw to someone seeking moral closure. Even the way NPCs respond to Arthur changes. Strangers notice his coughing. Allies comment on how sick he looks. Some react with concern, others with discomfort or impatience. This mirrors how terminal illness isolates people, not because they are abandoned, but because others don't know how to face what's happening. Arthur becomes a reminder of mortality in a world obsessed with survival. The final choice Arthur makes, whether to help John or chase money, lands differently because of the illness. Tuberculosis ensures that no ending is about victory.